Sure. Welcome back, everyone, to O'Neill's Grills. We wrap up our weekly Fan and Press Luncheon this week with JMU football coach Mike Houston. He's going to join us in just a moment. I got a couple of other things I want to share with you regarding other JMU sports news. You know, last week we had Coach Eikenberry here for a little baseball talk, and they went to South Carolina. They went to the home of the defending national champions and came back with a record of 2-1, beating North Carolina A&T. They did lose to St. John's, but also beat Coastal Carolina 11-3 as Adam Sisk had a pair of 3-run homers for the Dukes. So that was a nice win for Madison over the Chanticleers this past Sunday. Softball came back from Clearwater. They went 5-0 last weekend, 8-1 overall. Currently ranked 14th in the country. They got a couple of top 40 wins. They beat number 20 South Florida 5-0. Knocked off Oklahoma State 5-2. The Cowgirls have been receiving some votes. And so a couple of good top 40 wins there. The Dukes as a team, pretty healthy hitting, 316. ERA, you can hardly find it. It's 0.93. So, and that's just not all Megan Good. Odyssey Alexander has contributed to that also. And lacrosse off to a 3-1 start. They are ranked in all three of the major polls after that start. Their only loss was to the consensus number 1 North Carolina, and that was only by a couple of goals. And Shelley Clays-Balcom got her 118th coaching victory with the Dukes on Sunday, which ties her for the all-time lead with Dee McDonough. Dee is in the JMU Athletics Hall of Fame. Well, the football season ended not too long ago, actually, in Frisco on January the 7th. Probably the shortest time we've gone. It is the shortest time between a game and the spring practice, which gets underway next week. Spring game is April the 8th, and to talk more about that, let's welcome in Dukes head football coach. He's National Coach of the Year in nearly everything, Mike Houston.
Thanks a lot. Good to be back here at O'Neill's, and want to thank Mo for the Reuben again today. She says she's going to eventually name the sandwich after me, since I have the same thing every weekend when I come in here. But you know, when you get on a win streak like we were on at the end of the year last year, you don't change up anything. So, but a lot of excitement around campus right now with athletics, with men's and women's basketball finishing up their seasons and making a run at a CAA championship there, and baseball off to a hot start. Softball picking up right where it left off last year, and lacrosse, you know, a good start there. So a lot of things to be excited about right now around JMU, and certainly we're excited about starting spring practice. It's hadn't been too long since we practiced the last time, so it's it is a pretty short window, but we'll get started on Tuesday. We'll go Tuesday and Thursday next week, and then we have a week off for spring break, just the way the calendar falls with where our spring game was scheduled. Then we'll come back after spring break, and we'll be going on Tuesday and Thursday afternoons, and then on Saturdays, some mornings, some afternoons, and Saturdays will really be, you know, a big time for scrimmage and evaluation and some more game-like situations. But, you know, really excited to get back out there and, you know, see where some young guys are going to fit into our returning roster. We're certainly excited to have, you know, a lot of guys back off of last year's championship team. And, you know, they've been working very, very hard. They're in the weight room with Big John right now. We're doing morning runs, mat drills outside on Tuesday and Thursday mornings with the coaching staff. So, you know, they're staying pretty busy right now in preparation for that spring practice. But we'll get started next week, and, you know, April 8th will be here before you know it. In conjunction with the spring game on April the 8th, we will be awarding the players from last year's teams with their national championship rings. There will be a lot of things surrounding that. It'll be a post-game on the field presentation. There'll be a lot of things surrounding that will be, you know, geared towards the fans and allowing them to be there to celebrate, you know, the rings and the national championship one last time. And we felt like that would just be an appropriate time to break those out and give those to the kids, because their parents will be there. A lot of JMU fans will be there, and it'll be an appropriate celebration and a way to kind of end spring practice for 2017. So with that, I know we got a lot of questions to follow up on from the media. So questions about spring practice or last season or the upcoming season.
Coach, last season, obviously, you were scrambling to get plans in place because you just put a staff together taking over.
Right.
How much different is it going to be this year? Because you played until the very last game. You gave your staff a week off. How much scrambling have you had to do to get your preparations and your plans in place?
I've been scrambling a little bit. Everybody else is pretty relaxed. So, there's still a lot of stuff from the national championship with speaking engagements and things like that. The good thing is, it wasn't that long ago when we practiced, so it's not like you're installing a brand new offense or a brand new defense. You're kind of picking up where you left off. We spent a lot of time looking at things we need to improve on from last year. So I think the staffs on all three phases have kind of some key things that they have to work on this spring. The good thing is, we've already I know what date Meet the Dukes is. I know what date the pep rally before the first game is. We got a lot of things planned ahead. Where last year it's 2 weeks out and you're kind of scrambling to get ready for it. So, definitely, being year two, our entire coaching staff coming back, you're not sitting here having to get on the same page with the coaches or with the kids. Everybody understands the expectations. Everybody understands, their role, and everybody understands kind of the way we're going to go about doing things.
Greg Medea, DNR, with how much football your team played, 15 games, probably the most a lot of those guys have played in their career. Do you have to be conscious of, how many reps you're giving those key guys during the spring, Brian Shore, guys
right.
like that?
I think there's a balancing act to that because, they did play 15 games last year and we did finish, a little over a month ago. So, we're going to be smart with that stuff. At the same time, we got to make sure Aaron Stinney has the kind of spring that's going to prepare him to have a great senior season. We got to make sure that Brian Shore is sharp. Coming out of the spring, going into the summer. So I think there is a balancing act with that. I think, one of the things that we're really going to focus on is we have, some talented younger players that are going to be dependent on more heavily this year. And so this is going to be a time where you can really spend a lot of time trying to develop those guys and really work with those guys and see, are they ready to play?
I know you may not have been able to evaluate all the scout team to this point, but do you anticipate some of these guys maybe moving positions now that you've seen them for a year, even in a scout team role? Maybe you see something in them that might be a little bit better fit for your team.
Right. Yeah, I think especially, say on the defensive line, you might have a guy that, maybe was inside on the scout team that may play outside or something like that. Linebacker, outside linebacker, some stuff there. With the receivers, they're pretty interchangeable. So I don't see a whole lot of variation there, but certainly we'll try to put the kids in the best position where they have a chance to get on the field and play and contribute heavily to our football team.
With your team, just in terms of things you want to see from them this spring, what are some of them offensively, defensively? What are you looking for particularly just with these guys?
Well, I think you look back a year ago, we had no identity, So I think that we know who we are right now, and so I would like to see us build upon that identity. I would expect spring practice to be highly competitive when we go, offense versus defense all throughout the spring. I would expect to see us competing at an extremely high level during one-on-ones or during Skelly or during O-line, D-line pass rush because they understand the expectation for performance now. The thing that we've got to all adjust to is, usually even if you win a conference championship or something, you're coming off of a season that usually ends in a loss. And so you always have that sour taste in your mouth. Well, now all of a sudden we're coming off of a season where you won it all. You went undefeated in the CAA, you won the CAA championship, you won the national championship. You're going to be top 5 preseason next year going into next season. We have to guard ourselves against any complacency at all. And we've got to understand that right now we've gone from being kind of the team that hadn't won a playoff game in 4 or 5 years, kind of an underdog mentality, to now all of a sudden, we're everybody's got a bullseye on us. We're the game that everybody's got circled on their schedule. I promise you, New Hampshire, Delaware, Richmond, William and Mary, Villanova, they all have our game circled on their schedule, and we got to understand that. And now it's a deal where we are preparing for all contenders. Anybody that's coming after us, we've got to make sure we're prepared. So, that competition this spring, that edge that we played with at the end of the year last year, we've got to build on that going into 2017.
Have you seen that this group kind of understands what it takes, considering they just did it? I don't know whether you see it in, I guess, the early morning workouts with Big John, and did you see it?
Well, compared to a year ago, they were fighting to survive those early morning workouts because we were in such lousy shape, and they understand the work ethic standpoint. Now, the other stuff we're going to find out once we start practicing, but certainly, that we're in shape. We have good strength, we have good speed. All those things that you train, in the off season, those things are there. But do we have the edge? Do we have that high level of competition? Can we not only sustain that but build on that? We'll find that out over the next month and a half.
Mental toughness was obviously an integral part of your run last season. How do you teach, reteach, develop, redevelop that into spring practice?
I'm sorry, repeat the first part of that question.
The mental toughness, which is obviously a big part.
Yeah, sure. Well, and we talked about it this morning. Right now, we're heavy in the squat rack. We're heavy on our cleans right now. It's things where you're fighting through pain. You're out there this morning, and we're really pushing them hard to those runs, and it's easy to let up. It's easy to not finish a drill or something like that, and that's where that mental toughness. When you get fatigued, you've got to fight it. You got to battle it, and you got to have your leaders step up. And so that's the real thing we're challenging them with right now, and that's going to be the real thing that I hope to see over the next couple of months is that even though we're not playing in a national playoff game, it's spring practice is that same character trait there for our team, and I think that's going to be key to can we make a run at it again next year.
You said several times last year that Brian Shore always worked hard. Khalid Abdullah always worked hard. Some of your standout award-winning recipients were the guys leading practice.
Right.
How much have you seen that work ethic trickle down to some of these guys, even in these early morning workouts where they saw Khalid or Brian do it, and now that's become their habit as well?
Well, you're seeing it a lot. I've challenged them to see it more, especially from the freshmen. I can promise you, nobody's going to outwork Brian Shore. I sent out a picture last week. It's 20-some degrees out there. He's in a cut-off T-shirt, and he's the guy, right behind the sled pushing it, or he's the guy winning whatever drill. He is the consummate leader of this team. But we can't just have one guy. Clue is going to have to be a guy that becomes a more vocal leader this year. Raven Green's going to have to be more vocal. And then some of those younger kids, the Bryce McGinleys, the Adam Smiths, the guys that played significant reps last year, those guys are going to have to step into more of a leadership role moving forward.
I know last fall when Raven got that extra year of eligibility, he had told me that he was just so excited about what he could do in year two with you guys defensively. What is the ceiling for him just in terms of kind of growing within the defense?
Well, I think the big thing now is he understands not only his position, he understands the whole defense. We're going to work, throughout the spring and summer to try to make, he and Jordan interchangeable between the safety and rover position. And then at the same time, bringing along who is the next guy, who is, the next Raven Green. So I think Raven has a high ceiling. I think that he's a guy that can be very physical versus the run, which he has demonstrated, and he can be a great guy in coverage versus the pass. So I think that, really the sky's the limit for him, but I think his maturation of understanding the entire defense is really going to be the thing that's going to benefit him the most as far as his play on the field this coming fall.
Coach, you touched on Clue, and he played hurt most of the year, missed a game or two there. Showed his toughness down the stretch, especially if you think back to the pain he was in, some of the catches that he made. How is he now that he's had some time to rest, and is he on the mend to being 100% again?
Right. Well, he had surgery to make sure everything was corrected and taken care of, and he's on the mend right now, and he's about miserable standing around watching the morning runs, and we're kind of goading him a little bit when we're around him. But he's certainly a guy that's driven to be the best. And he has that mentality that we want in our football team. So I expect him to be back out there on the practice field after spring break. So he should be healthy for the bulk of the spring, and look forward to getting his leadership and his mindset back out there with our offense.
With the receivers you guys have to replace, is there going to be more of an emphasis on the tight ends this year, just because you lose some guys at the receiver position, whether it's using Clue beyond the red zone?
Right.
And even Nick Carlton, I guess.
Well, I think that, certainly with Clue's abilities, it would only be wise to make him a bigger part of the offense all over the field. As to do we become more of an 11 personnel or a 10 personnel team, I don't know. We'll find out. But certainly we've got to have some guys step into some big shoes. We expect big things from John Miller. I'd like to see Ish Hyman, kind of come into his own this spring. Is it going to be Riley Stapleton or Braxton Westfield? Who's going to be the starting X receiver that usually draws the one-on-one coverage. Those are the things that we're going to find out throughout the spring and summer. But certainly we're excited about a lot of the young kids we have coming up.
Coach, you've got 3 kids that are part of the incoming class that are on campus now.
Right.
How are they catching up to Big John's workouts? Because I remember last year, even the Gage Stills and the Khalid Abdullah was like, man, Big John's the real deal. How are these guys catching up and getting acclimated to the style of preparation and training you go through?
They're doing really well. They've figured out they're not at Georgia Tech or Maryland or wherever anymore. But they fit in real well with our players. They're working very, very hard. Obviously, there's ability there with Gus and Marcus. And then Marcus Hawkins, the true freshman, first semester freshman. He's adjusted really well, probably better than I had thought he would, being fresh out of high school. I kind of joked with him today that this time next year he'll be kind of an old hat, and with all the other freshmen kind of scrambling to survive. But they've all 3 done well, and excited to see what they're going to do on the field. Optimistically, I would expect all 3 to be heavy contributors this fall.
You talked about all the speaking engagements and the things you're having to keep up with because of the national championship. Has it been easy to get this team to turn the page and, okay, that's done, the next one's in front of us? Have they put that away maybe easier than you've been able to?
I think so. Certainly we've talked about it a lot. They've talked about it a lot. Big John's, forced them to turn it in the weight room. So I think so. I think the true next step is starting spring practice. But, at the end of the day, certainly I'd rather have this problem than the alternative. This is a good problem to have. So I'll take this issue to deal with every single year. But I think they've moved on.
I know this is a better question for your boss, but I guess speaking as a fan of college football, what do you make of Liberty's move to FBS?
Well, I think kind of to each their own. I think whatever fits your institution is what fits your institution. So if that's what they think is best for their future in athletics, then I wish them the best of luck. I think I can speak for President Alger, for Jeff Bourne, for Vice President Charlie King, for our Board of Visitors, that we are all on the same page in that we are going to do what is the very best for James Madison University and James Madison University athletics. And if the right bid comes to us from the right conference at the FBS level, then I think that you will see us enthusiastically transition. If that right bid does not come along, then I'm just fine with being one of the top FCS programs in the country.
Coach, you talked about at the end of the season how many text messages you had, how many emails you had, how long it was taking you to get called up. A, did you get called up? And B, was there 1 or 2 messages or people who reached out to you that might mean just a little bit more just because of who they are?
I've gotten back to most of them, and it's a thing where I've been able to catch up with a lot of people from my past, a lot of coaches, a lot of friends, but certainly there were a lot of pretty significant ones. Whether it's Fred Goldsmith and a phone call about something that meant to him that he saw in the championship game, or if it's a Dow Sheely reaching out and just talking about his take on everything and his memories of me, or it's a Perry Fuel, who's just a guy that was from Lenore-Rhine that is a very successful coach on his own. But certainly seeing a lot of well wishes from a lot of different people has been a great way to reconnect us and kind of keep up friendships and relationships.
All right, Coach, thank you very much.
Okay,
Coach Mike
thanks a
Houston
lot.
here.
Looking forward to next year. Go Dukes.
Go Dukes. Mike Houston here of JMU football. Thank you for joining us this week at O'Neill's Grill. We'll be back again